Boy, I mean, are you kidding me?
She goes all in now.
Now Brittany snap raises.
Pretty ballsy.
That is problems for Shannon Shore.
Hello and welcome to Poker Top 5 Hands April 2025 edition, where we go around the internet and around the world to check out the 5 most exciting hands played in the last month. This week we're looking at hands from Hustler Casino Live, High Stakes Poker, and the US Poker Open. Let's get started. At number 5, we're headed to Las Vegas for the US Poker Open, the event number 4, which is a 10K buy-in. We see a button open from He with Ace-9 offsuit, which is a standard open. This player is a bit of an unknown. He has 862k cashes, which is a lot, but actually small considering the elite level of the average player of this field. As evidenced by Steven Chidwick, 64 million lifetime winnings, third all-time, defending in the big line. He's got Jack-8 offsuit. He gives a bit of a thought to 3-bet, but he does elect to make a pretty standard call. We go to a board of 10, 6-4 rainbow. This board slightly prefers the button open because both players will have the 7-5 for the opens and a straight draw, some top pair, but button still has more of the over pairs. Could start betting, but checking is also fine. Ace-9 might be good at showdown. We get the 7 of clubs, which gives Chidwick a double gutter. Either a 5 or a 9 would give him a straight. A lot of equity, and he decides to start using that to start trying to win the pot right off the bat with the lead. It's interesting Chidwick went for the small sizing here. He bet about 1/3 pot. It's unlikely to win the hand right here and there, but of course could build up a bigger pot if he does make a straight, and if he misses it, maybe he'd go for a bluff. He has not a flush draw, but he does have the blocker to the nut flush if it arrives. He also has his own straight draw if an 8 hits, and he has that overcard ace, and ace high could be good. In fact, it is. So he figures out what's going on, and instead of just calling, puts in a raise. This raise puts Chidwick's hand in a really awkward position. Still a ton of equity, but now facing this turn raise and having to play out of position on the river. But he does something very heads up, which he puts in a 3-bet. I'm not sure all players are even considering 3-bet here, but the thing he does that's really interesting is he does a very small 3-bet. I imagine most players who are 3-betting in this spot are just jamming, hoping to maximize fold equity. So Chidwick using the small sizing, keeping his opponent priced in, fascinated me. Now he is the one in the awkward spot, and you can see how effective this small 3-bet is because he still has that straight draw, which makes it very tough to fold to this tiny bet. He pretty much has to call, but it's the final table. People are trying to preserve chips, and now you have ace-high 9 kicker in a 3-bet turn spot. It can't feel good against one of the best players in the world. The river is the king of hearts, so the straight draw is missed and the flush draw missed, so it's almost a brick, but it is an overcard. Some hands that were previously bluffs, like king 8, might now want to go for value. So Chidwick has jack high, almost certainly can't be good at showdown. He also has the blocker, so the nuts, the 9-8. So he has about as much going on as a bluff candidate as he could, and perhaps he's a live read that he was hesitant to call on that turn. So he does go for it. Not the all-in sizing, leaving himself some chips if he is called and loses, but very close to it, going for it. Huge spot. Easier said than done giving his opponent raise turn than call the 3-bet. Definitely could be nerve-wracking that this might not work, but Chidwick is number 3 all-time for a reason. He gets his bluffs through more than the average person and does in fact get a fold here. Chidwick is number 3 all-time tournament winning, so I love studying how he plays, and I think the standout part of this line was a small sizing on that turn 3-bet. Hard enough to go for, but most players might just jam. He went small and built a bigger pot for the river bluff. Hand number 4, we're headed to Los Angeles, Hustler Casino Live, where we see Sashimi raise to $100 with pocket 8s, DQ call with the ace-10 off, queen-jack off calls, a bit of an odd 3-bet for the jack-5 suited, although there is a lot of dead money in the pot, and 3-coin with a very sneaky just flat with the Cowboys. Sashimi comes along with the pocket 8s, then DQ gets a bit out of line, jamming a big squeeze back raise with the ace-10 off. A bit light, but there was a lot of dead money in the pot, and as the shorter stack could put the big stacks in an awkward position of wanting to avoid bloated pots against each other. Unfortunately, he just runs into it, and 3-coin again makes a sneaky just call. Doesn't protect his hand, which would be the more standard play to just jam himself, avoid an ace on the flop, but it pays off for him big time because then Sashimi blasts off with the pocket 8s. The commentary said they understand why Sashimi did this. I think it's probably just a bit too light. We probably should have seen a fold, but it is Hustler Casino Live. They don't always invite you back if you play too tight. There may have been some extra incentives, such as a Nick game. I don't think there was, but I might have missed it. Either way, 3 coin, picks them all off, big 3-way pot. I usually don't like slow playing kings pre-flop because you can always see the ace on the board. Rather get the money in pre, but it worked out big time, probably because this game was so aggressive. So many players just trying to steal the pot. The slow play did seem to backfire for 3 coin though. When the ace falls on the flop, of course he's still bound to stack Sashimi, but he'll lose the main pot. But he did flop that straight draw and he rivers the gut shot Broadway to scoop this massive pot. He had doubled Sashimi up earlier with a questionable hand, but he got it all back here. This hand is a little bit more fun and goofy compared to the last hand, but a lot of us play live cash where it's more multi-way. We're not playing against Steven Chidwick, we're playing against the 3 coins and the Sashimi, so I thought this was an interesting hand as well. Hand number 3, we're staying in Hustler Casino Live. We can note that the $1,000 Nick game started, so there is an extra incentive to win a pot here. Ludacris, who's a very regular player, opens the Jack-8 suited from the low jack. Brittany from the cutoff makes a very standard 3-bet with the Ace-5 suited, GTO's favorite hand, and Ludacris comes along with a call. We go to a flop of 9-6-3 rainbow. Not a lot going on for either player. Ludacris checks, and Brittany makes a pretty standard small C-bet, kind of just pushing that range advantage. Ludacris, given the small sizing, kind of has to come along. He's got the backdoor spades, backdoor straight draw, and overcard, so a little too much to fold. Well played by both players. The turn gives Ludacris a pair of 8s, and he checks, and Brittany snap checks back turn, which is a decision I think will come to haunt her. Not because she necessarily needed to bet, but because she should have at least thought about it, given what we're about to see. Ludacris makes a really small lead, almost 1/7 pot, almost like just please call me and pay me off with your ace high with a pair of 8s. And maybe Brittany sniffs it out for what it is, and she makes a snap raise, a pretty significant raise to $20,000, putting Ludacris in a pretty tough spot. I don't think people necessarily raise here enough, which is why I like the idea that Brittany is going for it, but I think that turn snap check back is going to haunt her, because what is she representing with this raise? Pretty much either a flush or a slow played set. The problem is, if you have a flush draw on the turn, you're going to at least think about barreling more, and if you have a set, you're probably going to want to protect your hand from the flush draw and straight draw that arrived on the turn. So Ludacris picks her off without too much thinking, and I included this hand because it's a pretty classic example of a timing tell. Timing tells are a great way to read your opponents both live and online, and this is a simple spot where you would almost be forced to think about a bet with a flush draw or a set on the turn. By not doing so, she narrowed her range too much, made it too easy for Luda to snap her off. Let's head back to the Poker Go studio in Las Vegas, Nevada for the newest season of high stakes poker. We got Alan Keating, a very popular player. You never know if you're going to get the whale donator version of Keating or the old Grinder Pro version, but we got the latter version here. He recently won the biggest pot ever on high stakes poker, so you'd think I include that hand, but I love great poker strategy. I love great poker decisions, and Keating demonstrates one here. He 3-bets the ace-queen off from the small blind, gets Rick Solomon and Kiki to come along with their mediocre hands. He flops top pair second kicker, obviously very good, but a very sneaky check. Usually you think you want to put some money in there. Solomon had flopped a gutter, and Kiki had flopped nothing, but now this 8 on the turn gives Solomon a double gutter, Kiki an open-ended. They both want to come along, but Keating checks again and lets Solomon lead, putting about 50K into that 90K pot, about half pot. Kiki has his open and a straight draw. He is not going anywhere. But now this pot has over doubled in size from 90K to 190K. Got a lot of money in there. And now Keating figures out where he's at, that he still has the best hand. And he puts in this really big check raise. And it's really beautiful spot because Solomon has so many outs and Kiki has so many outs. But how can they call this massive check raise with only 16% equity with only 8 outs? So Keating's check raise was very unconventional to check both flop and turn before putting in this multi-way raise. A little risky because he could have just run into a set. But as it worked out, He puts 2 draws in a disgusting spot because they have so much equity, but how can they call a 200K raise with just 16% to hit their draw and no way of winning without hitting their draw? And sure enough, they both muck their hands, and Keating takes down this massive pot without showdown, which always feels good. Now, they would have missed anyway, but he didn't know that on the turn, so I still really like how this was played. For the number 1 hand, we're still in Las Vegas, Poker Go Studio, but heading over back to the US Poker Open. A lot of great players like Isaac Haxton in the field. We got He again. Congrats to him for 2 deep runs and 2 10Ks, but playing against Shannon Shore, who has 15 million lifetime winnings, top 100 all time, another great player to study. He opens the 9-7 suited on the cutoff. He comes along in position on the button with a 10-9 of hearts, and we'll go to a flop. The flop comes King 9-6 rainbow, 1 heart, both players flopping that mid pair. Of course, he has Shannon Shore out-pipped with the better kicker, the 10 instead of the 9. Shore checks this hand. Pretty classic middle strength hand with second pair, bad kicker, probably trying to work as a showdown if possible. He picks up that his hand is probably ahead, puts in a little value bet, good bet. As expected, Shannon Shore calls, which we usually expect to see. He has a middle strength hand trying to work as a showdown. But trouble starts brewing when the case 9 arrives on the turn, giving both players 3 9s, but Shannon Shore still out-kicked.
That is problems for Shannon Shore.
Got a pair?
He thinks he just hit everything.
Okay.
Despite check calling on the flop, Shannon does choose to donk this turn. It's pretty standard to donk when the second card pairs because second pair is so often in the check calling range. It's usually better for the check caller. But of course, in this situation, in position also does have the trips. There's also a flush draw to represent some semi-bluffs, so he goes for a raise here, trying to build the pot. It's a tricky spot for Shannon, but his hand is very strong. They started this hand with only 30 big blinds. He has trips. He's probably not worried about pocket kings, which would have likely 3-bet pre-flop. So the only hands he's probably concerned about is a better 9, a hand like pocket 6s, but he still has outs to a full house. Some would chop, some would win versus a better 9. So he does continue, plus perhaps he's hoping he's up against a diamond draw. The 8 of clubs arrives on this river, bricking the diamond draw. Shannon checks, and he bets 600K, which is about 1/3 pot and a small sizing. Now, they started this hand with 30 big blinds, and at that stack depth, in the solver world, we're often seeing stack-offs with hands as weak as top pair. Shannon has 3 9s. 3 of a kind is almost a nuts at this short stack depth. And compounding is how small he bet, only 1/3 pot, giving Shannon about 5-1. Really good odds in seeing a call. He does not need to be good here very often to make this a correct call. It's a huge, massive hero fold to throw it away, but that's exactly what Shannon does, preserving chips. And those smart, exploitative decisions to preserve chips paid off big because he ended up winning this tournament for 220K, first place in a Poker Masters event. Congrats, Shannon Shore. Certainly earned it with amazing folds like the one we just watched. Hey, if you're still watching, thanks for watching. I appreciate your support. Likes and subscribes mean a lot to me. I realized I'd taken a little bit longer than I wanted to. Last one I did was November. I'm going to try to get back and do this episode at least once a month. We got the Hustler Casino $1 million game coming up, as well as the World Series of Poker around the corner. So I think a lot of poker to cover in the short term, and I hope to see you back and watching my analysis. Thank you.